little bit. Okay. All right. Right. Thank you so much for joining this dissertation. And I will start, first of all, by acknowledging, just giving some acknowledgement. First thing foremost, wanted to thank God for allowing me the opportunity to do my doctoral program and being able to finish it, inshallah. And I would like to, first of all, recognize some individuals who have really helped me, and without whose support, I would not be able to come thus far. First thing foremost, Dr. Seema Imam, my chair, and co-chair, Dr. Denin. Without their support, this wouldn't have happened. I appreciate their tireless effort throughout the dissertation to guide me and support me and really nurture me, to push me to do my best, really. I would like to also thank Dr. Gibson, Dr. Miner, and other professors who have supported me throughout my dissertation and throughout my doctoral journey. I would like to also recognize and acknowledge my parents, who've been an anchor for me, my husband and my children, who've really, really supported me throughout my my journey as a doctoral program. So I wanted to begin by talking about the why behind the research. And as you know, that I am a principal and a founding member of Guided School of Excellence. And I've been actively involved in developing, implementing, and monitoring the different initiatives in the school for about 18 years from now. I've been a part of organizing the management, curriculum structures, policies and procedures, and I've been an instructional coach and a guide for my teachers. And I've really seen the school grow from preschool all the way up to 8th grade. I've also been involved in the students' interaction by way of different programs. I do a lot of principals chat, and I also mentor my children, my students. A lot of daily classroom visits and interactions with them really gave me a firsthand knowledge about the student engagement in the classroom. And the first time that I really got to, got interested in grit, when I read the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, Grit, the Power of Passion and Perseverance. And I learned about grit as a non-cognitive skill during my dissertation. And when I reflect back to my own childhood and my experiences and my setbacks and challenges, and the things that I've endured during my life, it made me examine my own resilience and the grit that I have when I was growing up that made me who I am today. And I also was intrigued and was interested in this topic, and that really fueled my my passion. And I immediately started to examine the students and whether or not they show the signs of having grit as they pass through their educational journey. And I wanted to look for the ways to design my research, where I looked at Wagner's 4 C's model of change leadership on the 2006 research that talks about the culture, context, competencies, and conditions of the school. And I looked at the as-is state of the school before the implementation of the mentorship program. And through my interaction with my teachers and different data that I've collected, the teacher observation, the surveys, the principals chat, I came to notice a lot of gaps during that time. For example, there were many students that were disengaged. There were moments where the students demonstrated fixed mindset language in the classrooms, and there were some behavioral issues. And we've seen many students who are at the at-risk category in the school, which is the NWEA score, where under 10 percentile students end up as an at-risk category. I began to research different strategies for school improvement, and student-teacher mentorship program became a viable option. According to Kurtz 2009, there's a strong correlation in schools between mentorship program and the student outcome. However, I found many literature on the mentoring as an intervention for middle and high school, but couldn't find too much research on the primary and elementary schools regarding the mentorship program. And throughout my research and my dissertation process, I contribute literature on the topic of developing grit by way of implementing the student-teacher mentorship program in younger grade level. Because according to Kurtz et al. 2014 research, the young children are the ones that are malleable, their brains are malleable, and their neuroplasticity of their brain are very high. Hence, the purpose of my study is to examine the factors that cultivate grit in the learning of young children by examining the student-teacher mentorship program in Guidance School of Excellence. Additionally, I will examine how human relationship help the student really develop their non-cognitive skills from an early age and guide students to understand their learning goals better. The following question really guides my study. The first one is, to what extent does the student-teacher mentorship program in Guidance School of Excellence cultivate grit in the learning of young children? The second question is, what factors of human relationship and personal connection help students develop non-cognitive skills? And the third is, to what extent does the self-directed learning cycle used in the mentorship program guide students towards better understanding of their learning goals? I organized my literature review using the three major concepts that shaped my research. The first one is the impact of cognitive and non-cognitive skills in children. The second one is the motivation and how motivation helped with grit. And the third is human relationship and how human relationship impact the students' non-cognitive skills. I used multiple resources from correlated longitudinal and causal research studies from established body of knowledge to really provide an in-depth review of my findings. And I wanted to make this pointer here. One theoretical framework that shaped my study was done by Stratford, Brazier, and Cantor in 2016 that really creates a building block of success. And this framework is a evidence-based skills that and that facilitates and fosters the success in the children. And they have been proven by research to strongly correlate with academic success. So there's a chronology in the development of these non-cognitive skills that shows that the most students' foundational non-cognitive skills comes first before their higher order thinking skills. And it stands as a benchmark for early childhood readiness. For example, the attachment stress management comes as a precursor to school readiness skills and growth mindset, resilience, and self-direction. Now, I wanted to, what I did was I examined the research done by Duckworth that proves from her research that grit is the predictor of success and a precondition to other non-cognitive skills. I was able to then combine the research done by Stratford, Brazier, Cantor, and Duckworth's research to kind of show that grit is the result of the combination of other foundational non-cognitive skills. And based on the research, the process takes the child from the foundational non-cognitive skills to higher order thinking skills to the higher level of grit that adults and how adults help them stimulate and motivate in them. And I wanted to show you this diagram. It's based on my literature review and my research on grit, I created this long-term success framework that shows that the personal relationship is required as way to cultivate the foundational non-cognitive skills. And the large body of evidence has shown the importance of this intentional, positive, and responsive human relationship, especially during their early childhood years, actually helps to foster those non-cognitive skills in young children. I also looked at motivation, and I asked what aspect motivates students to work hard. And then I studied the literature on the motivation, which is separate from the other non-cognitive skills, because of the research done by grit that shows there is a connection between motivation and grit by Rayan Desai 2000 research. That really shows the self-determination theory that was produced by the Rayan and Desai that says that there are really three foundational elements in the intrinsic motivation. One is the autonomy, second is the competence, and the third is the relatedness. So when there is a choice that a child takes, where there's the action of a student, choosing to fulfill a series of short-term and long-term goals, really gives them that sense of intrinsic motivation, which gives the student the feeling of autonomy. And intrinsic motivation is required for perseverance of effort, and that is one of the dimensions of grit that I will be talking to you about a little bit later. So although a person may have cognitive and non-cognitive skills, they need a motivation factor to achieve grit. When I look at grit, and as we've learned that the list of non-cognitive skills and habits are quite long, but I wanted to really concentrate on a skill that it's almost like a catch-all for other non-cognitive skills. And grit stood out among the other non-cognitive skills primarily because of its contributing factor that helps a person persevere in his or her goal, leading to the long-term success. So the Duckworth and Quinn in 2009 research identified two dimensions of grit that consist of the perseverance of effort and the consistency of interest that was developed through the self-reported grit scale based on those two dimensions. I also looked at the Duckworth and determined that to achieve grit, a person must combine other essential non-cognitive skills. So for example, the teacher can really help the student cope with setbacks and during their productive struggles that really build resilience, which is one of the non-cognitive skills, that is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Similarly, the teacher can cultivate a mindset in students, which is another essential non-cognitive skills known to be linked to grit in young children based on Myers 2016 research. So thus it shows how personal relationship really helps to cultivate foundational non-cognitive skills that lead to grit with the cognitive and motivation that leads to long-term success. I used qualitative method to collect my data in this study, and it's based on Patterns 2008 research that says that qualitative data really helps to learn about the people's expressions and their thoughts in their own words. And I used purposeful sampling method due to the limited number of participants. And the participants in my research were teachers and students from the kindergarten to 6th grade. And the instruments that I used in my research was student survey, teachers survey, teachers focus group interview, and the students NWEA map testing scores. The Duckworth's famous grit scale was not used. Instead, I designed questions similar to the ones used in the grit scale that was developed by Duckworth and Co in 2009 research. As I'm interested in learning whether or not there is a growth in their level of grit from beginning of the year to the end of the year, I looked more at the 2 dimensions of grit. And I conducted a comparative analysis of the intensity of their attitudes, the students and teachers' attitude about the questions over time. And the specific questions asked students to rank themselves on a sliding scale, on an Atkin scale, through that giving me a data that reflects their attitude and their perception on their goals from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And I organized my findings around the research questions that really guided my dissertation. The first question is, to what extent does the student-teacher mentorship program in Guided School of Excellence cultivate grit in the learning of young children? And in response to this question, I asked them questions regarding the 2 grit scales, the dimensions. The first dimension is the consistency of interest, and then the perseverance of effort. And in the consistency of interest, I asked, I'm motivated to accomplish my goal with my mentor. And the results show that there was a 13% increase in the intensity, in the consistency of interest at the end of the year than in the beginning of the year. And the outcome reveals that the teachers were able to develop that bond and that rapport with the students by the end of the year, which really influences their willingness to persist with the goal. I then looked at the perseverance of effort, and I asked, accomplishing my goal is hard work, but I will not give up. And the results show that there were a 44% increase in the students' intensity to persevere and exert their effort by the end of the year than in the beginning of the year. And I interpreted that with the mentor guidance, the students were more inclined to persevere and endure their discomfort of really revising the work multiple times without giving up by the end of the year. And this reflects back to the level of motivation, which I was mentioning, the autonomy, the competence, and the relatedness, because since the students have that autonomy to set their own goals, they were able to feel competent when they're able to accomplish their goals, and have that relatedness with the teacher or with the mentor that really gives them that motivation, igniting that motivation to persist with their goal until they accomplish it. I then looked at the map data because I wanted to kind of see the relation between the cognitive skill development and the students' mentoring and that personal connection. And the students were, it shows, when I looked at the at or above grade level from the map data, the NWEA map data, and it shows an increase of 6% from the fall to spring of the same year, which was above the 5% for significant growth and the established standard of desirability according to pattern that determines the level which the program is considered useful. I also looked at the at-risk students who were in the area which is less than 10% percentile, and I saw that there was a 50% drop in the students from fall to spring. I also looked at the teacher's perception on mentoring, and most all, 100% of the teachers said either very or extremely important to have a consistent mentoring session with the students. My finding strengthened as it supports Cantor et al.'s 2018 research that human relationship and personal connections are the primary contributing factor developing a child's foundational non-cognitive skills. The finding also supports my framework for long-term success that foundational non-cognitive skills are the precursor to demonstrating grit in young children. And that leads to how the cognitive skills and grit and motivation are required for long-term success. I then look at the second question that said, what factors of human relationship and personal connection actually help students develop non-cognitive skills? And by looking at the data, that was revealed that the purposeful, intentional, and reciprocal positive human relationships are the factors that really help students shape their non-cognitive skills. And the mentoring program really created a system for the students to really develop those positive relationships with the teachers, which is essential for their growth and development. And as reported by the teachers in their focus group interview, one example showed how student A, who really demonstrated, who had really the lack of interest and his inability to really connect with schoolwork and his passion and was ended up in an at-risk category in MAP testing. The mentor eventually helped them see the connection between the schoolwork and his values and goals and aspirations, which later found out was to become a basketball player. His MAP score increased from the 7th percentile in the fall in 2017 score to 39th percentile in the spring of the same year, bumping him out of the at-risk category. Hence, the data reveals evidence that the mentorship program was useful for students' cognitive and non-cognitive growth and strongly supports Cantor's 2018 research and Tufts' 2016 research that the adults play a crucial role in the investment of a child during their foundational years. And I also, like I said before, supports the framework for my long-term success that personal connection influences a child's motivation, cognitive and non-cognitive skills. Moving on to the third question is, to what extent does the self-directed learning cycle used in the mentorship process guide students towards better understanding of their learning goal? And when I looked at the self-directed learning cycle, it has a considerable positive impact on the young children and really guides students towards the better understanding of their goal. When I look at the response from the statement, I see action plan developed, I set action plan to develop goals with my mentor was one of the questions that was asked for the students. And I see the response that there was a 50% increase in the students who selected strongly agreed at the end of the year. And also, when I looked at the focus group interview, one teacher said that mentoring provided students with time and space to fail repeatedly before they make any progress and realize that their efforts directly impact outcome. The students must complete the goals they set in the teaching and completed the learning cycle before moving on to the next target. And this process allowed students to stay on course and persevere until they reached the long-term goal. As a result of this positive mentor and mentorship relationship, the student had a better understanding of their learning goals and really persevered with effort, ultimately reaching a heightened level of grit. The mentorship program had a many positive attributes and have, had a lot of findings, but I also noticed that there were some setbacks in the research, and I wanted to identify 3 areas that really needed to be addressed. The first one is mentoring time management. As we know that the time that the teacher has is limited, And the teachers really need to understand and know that investing in mentoring is a condition to be ready for learning. And one of the things I recommend is to really strategize the time when they're spending with the students during the mentorship program, during the time that they're spending with the mentor and mentee, where the first part of the time could be spent more on social and emotional growth, and the teacher really probing if they identify any students who are having trouble or find that there is any barrier that are preventing them from really accomplishing their goal, to really cultivate those skills and really catch them just in time, and just to seize the moment of really developing those non-cognitive skills then and there, which is actually the crucial point, is catching them at the right moment. And the second part of the mentorship program could be to really talk about their learning goals, their journey, and giving them that autonomy, as I was mentioning before, to give them that autonomy to select and their own goals, set their goals, and help them to really realize that they are accomplishing their goals and really be with them every step of the way. I also recommend modifying the master schedule that really allows advocacy period, which I call it, where the teachers are able to give them that time while their students are doing independent work to then really concurrently do mentoring at that time. I then the second recommendation would be the mentoring monitoring system. That one of the recommendation I give is to really take notes while mentoring, electronic notes while mentoring, so that the teachers or mentors are able to use those notes on the future interaction with the students, and really have that data throughout the year to really make decisions about the placement of the students and how they're doing from the beginning at the end of the year. I also recommend to offering the diagnostic tool protocol, which is really the set of non-cognitive skills that helps the students to identify what are their areas of strength, what non-cognitive skill are they strong in, and what are the areas that they would look for that they're lacking, that they can actually cultivate and develop with the students. The third recommendation is the mentoring training program. And for that, we know that if we develop a mentorship program, that the teachers really have dual role to play. They are teachers and they're mentors. So I think it's important to really have the teachers really have that mindset and belief that it is important, the importance of that personal relationship, and that connection actually pays dividend in the future when they're actually ready to teach the students. And I would definitely provide them recommend training to build that strong relationship, and allocate resources that allows the schools to provide those professional development programs, and train the teachers to really conduct a successful mentorship experience, and to actually train them on the self-directed learning cycle, and have them really know how to connect with them to give them that extra support, especially the younger grade levels. The recommendation policy and practice. I advocate for establishing a mentorship program in my school because of my unwavering belief that students are more responsive to schools and initiatives such as the social emotional learning initiative if they can consistently connect with a caring adults or mentor. In light of advocating for the mentorship program, I would like to propose the Guiding School of Excellence Board to adapt the following policy statement. All students in Guiding School of Excellence, kindergarten to 6th grade, will be assigned a teacher mentor who will meet with them every week for an average of 10 minutes to discuss their goals using the self-directed learning cycle and address any barriers that may be preventing them from succeeding in school. The the transformation of school and initiative requires the entire system to change, as I've learned through Wagner. And the change initiative will have certain implications on the staff, the students, the parents, and even in the community. Starting with the staff, as we learned that there's a strong correlation in schools between mentorship program and student outcome. But as we also know that the teachers are pressured to cover the curriculum, and they are more worried about the standardized tests because they may not see that mentoring actually gives value in a short period of time, and that gives immediate results in the standardized testing, that immediate results that they are evaluated. The student evaluation are normally based on the standardized testing and not on their non-cognitive skills. So they wouldn't see the value of it. Therefore, I recommend the leaders to really examine their teacher evaluation system to be sensitive to these social emotional growth of those students and not just look at the standardized test. The most recent reform, called the Every Student Success at the ESA, is definitely headed into the right direction. Similarly, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, the CASEL, is a missing link in education that really provides that equitable learning environment so all students can thrive. And when I look at the implication for students, it's really up to the students' wishes if they would like to share their concerns and their challenges during the mentorship process. However, I do want to emphasize how important it is to have that weekly connection with the students that really gradually build that relationship and really help these teachers to then connect, or the students to then break out of their shell and be able to talk about their experiences and allow the teachers to actually help them. Third would be the parents, implication with parents, because I feel like parents may not know the benefit of mentoring their children and may question the need for such interaction. And they might even question the confidentiality of the process, where we must educate the parents about the benefit of mentoring, which really give them that reassurance that the primary focus of doing this program is to develop their non-cognitive skills and really have that personalized learning effect with it. And thirdly, the community members. And I feel like there's an indirect relationship from mentoring to the community benefit from the broader community, because schools really prepare students to be college and career ready, right? But really they cannot do that in isolation. The school must rely on families and communities and peers and really work as like a partner to develop that relationship and really develop those students. Because community benefits from a student who graduates with the right tools and academic mindset that will then be able to be actively participant in the society and civil engagement. There are certain limitations of the study that I need to talk about that needs further consideration. And the social desirability bias that I would like to talk about. There is a possibility of the survey's validity being compromised due to the concept of social desirability bias. And the social desirability is the means as an individual may hide their true feelings to put themselves in a positive light. So in this case, the students may not give accurate data about their mentorship experience to impress the mentors. And since the social desirability does not impact informant data, and grit can reliably be assessed by informant data according to Duckworth and Quinn research, I used the teachers' survey as a focus group interview to triangulate the student survey data. However, we also need to take into consideration that there is a possibility that the teachers may withhold information when asked about their experiences and their relationship with the students in the fear of negative evaluation. I also looked at the future research, and so the impact of mentoring students at an early age may show more significant results in the future lives, well beyond their primary and elementary years. So this research leaves room for other researchers to further this study and to really collect longitudinal data about the effects of the students in middle and high school and beyond who were exposed to this consistent mentoring during their elementary and primary grades. And this research really paves the way for others to learn more about the non-cognitive skills in the younger children, in a younger grade level, and the positive effects of the mentoring program using a bigger and a larger sample size than Guiding School of Excellence could offer. And although the Guiding School of Excellence is predominantly female, this research didn't really take into consideration the variations of the impact of monitoring or mentoring the children based on their age or gender, as it was outside the scope of the study. Others can definitely expand on this research to learn about the impact of mentoring on students' grit level and whether age or gender differences impact differently. I would like to present these two research-based statements before I sum up my presentation. The first one is that children develop non-cognitive skills depend on the environment the child is brought up and the positive adult relationship during the early years with the parent or the guardian, according to Tuff 2006. And the second research that highlights the positive relationship between a child and a non-parent adult is one of the factors in promoting resilience and grit among children from at-risk background by Rode 1994. And these are some of my references that I used on this particular presentation. With that, I welcome any questions that you may have.
Wonderful. Losing my voice here. Thank you so much for that very informative presentation, Azra. I was remembering one of the things I said early on, and we had a conversation about, and that was making a contribution to the field of education, and what would your contribution be? And you really covered a lot of ground in the presentation. And I also wanted to congratulate you for your leadership in the conference that was online over the weekend, because I knew what was coming for you on Wednesday. And I saw you there on Zoom guiding other leaders at a national conference. So that was really a warm feeling that I had. So we'll open it up for questions. I have a few, I'm sure Dr. Denny and Dr. Gibson may as well, and others. Anyone in particular want to jump in?
Oh, Jack's on mute.
Yeah, Jack's muted.
Sorry, and a muted Jack is an unhappy Jack. So here we go. Here we go. Yes, I actually had two comments. Well, three, if you count the first one here. I'm just echoing what Seema said. Azra, a beautiful presentation of your information. And again, when we look from beginning to middle to end, it is almost a miracle of nature that that any of us can recognize, the final efforts, because they've been through so many different iterations, and you've done such a wonderful job with that. I had two comments that I wanted to make that just stand out in my mind, and that is that your absolute commitment to the growth of kids within within your institution is wonderfully commendable. And you've operationalized it in a way that the analytics that you provide give the teachers in your setting the tools that they need to actually get that job done. As we know, sometimes it's easier for them to get a job done than others, but by the mere fact that you're providing a good framework for folks to take a look at what is being presented and provided as school as resources and where it can lead, brings an immediacy to their work with kids. And I think that that's a wonderful thing that you've done. A second comment that I wanted to mention is that every study I know of has limitations. So I think that you were very realistic in pointing out that there always could be a question about the veracity of the data because of the closeness of the researcher, you in this case, to the environment and your relationship with teachers in a supervisory role. However, as I have come to know you and the way that you're doing your work, you project an incredibly open-minded approach to being able to accept the data, what the data tells us, whether it's good stuff or not so good stuff. So I think that you have exercised, I'm just commending you for the fact that you've exercised really good judgment in the way things were set up. And then really, really good judgment by pointing out what the limitations are so that no one would feel that you were trying to somehow miscommunicate. So good job. I loved it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Denny.
Very nice. Thank you, Jack.
Very nicely done, very well presented. And as I mentioned earlier, I remember you were extremely passionate about this topic coming into the program. So it's nice to see you bring this work to fruition. You know, I think you did a really good job. You know, we want the research to be used, and you produced work to be used. And as you mentioned, it's not about replication, but you as a leader, how are you thinking through these issues? 21st century learning skills and building teacher capacity to do that work. You know, everyone is in their unique context, but other leaders can see how you're presenting this roadmap in your own context and think about what needs to be done in their own. So here's one question I have for you. I think you did a really effective job telling the story, and I was able to see how you position your lived experiences, the culture shock, the experiences with your grandmother, and what that means for the students that you serve. I always think about Elmore's principle of reciprocity, right, for school leaders. So for every unit of performance, school leaders have the obligation to provide teachers with an equal unit of capacity. And if we don't do that, right, students, so I'm interested in how you're fostering, how you're building capacity to do this work with your teachers.
That's a really good question, Dr. Denny, Dr. Gibson. So when we first implemented the mentorship program back in 2017, it was definitely a step towards something new. Like this is a change in the process. And one of the things that I really look for is those framework where how can I make sure that I have that buy-in with the teachers? And because this is definitely a system changing process, right? I cannot just change and do the mentoring without everything else around it not being changed. So, and knowing that the teachers are the main ingredients, they are the ones who's going to be there to actually perform and do the mentoring. I had the conversation with the teachers in depth before the program was even implemented, and really through different surveys. And once there is a shift in thinking, it was a lot to do with how I provided that learning opportunity for them. One of the programs that I've implemented, the Summit Learning Program that I've introduced to them, that really allows them to see the interaction with the students in a way that with different scenarios of how to break it down, and really giving them to learning the capacity, increase the capacity. I also allow them to make mistakes. So I think it's the process of really giving them, the teachers, the allowance to try out different scenarios and really guide them through the process. So it's the balance between supporting them and then also guiding them through the process and challenging them through the process.
Good, good. And my second question, you reference, state assessments. So I was interested in terms of the performance-based assessments. Could you talk about that? Or as we think about project-based instruction and those meaningful high leverage learning opportunities, can you describe the process in which your students are assessing student knowledge separate, right, from state mandated assessments?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so we follow the project-based learning approach, which is, I think, is one of something that I'm passionate about. That is because it's the way that the students are really using hands-on activities in order for them to learn those cognitive skills. So another way that we examine or we evaluate the students is through the diagnostic rubric that we created, where the students we look at students demonstrating their knowledge, the capability to synthesize information, or they're able to demonstrate their what they're learning through their presentations. So there is a continuum that we have from the beginning, from the students who are demonstrating from the kindergarten level all the way up to the eighth grade level. And we really push them through that. We also do the NWA MAP test, which is separate from that. So we actually look at not just the standardized test, which we call NWEA, but we also look at how they're demonstrating their knowledge and how they're able to create certain or produce certain projects that really show that their knowledge that they're showing.
Okay. And my final question, just in light of the pandemic, how has that kind of informed the work that's happening at your school, the adjustments being made, the use of technology, and so forth?
I love your question because I feel I feel that by looking at the unfortunate situation that the pandemic has not just given us, but will leave us, for those students with the equity challenge that we're having right now, and then just the learning loss that had happened. The real challenge now is to how to make sure that the students who had unable to really grow because of online learning, it's been almost a year since the students have not been able to go back. With that, I would say yes, silver lining at the end of the tunnel, where yes, the vaccines are here and we're now able to go back, but we are finding that there are challenges. And I think my study actually is instrumental in during this time of, like, it's critical right now to be able to have that interaction and then personalize their learning based on the fact that, okay, this is where the child is. How can we make sure that child can be bumped up into and really recuperate some of that learning loss that happened? So I think I am very passionate about making sure that, and if God permits me, and I'm able to help other schools as well to be able to really implement programs like this so that we can quickly able to bump the students up and to their level.
Thank you. Very nicely done and very nicely presented. Great.
Yeah, so off of that last point, one of the things you said to quickly, bump their level up, and maybe the mentoring program could be implemented in other schools in order to do that. I wonder if, in fact, this is not really a question for anyone, but I wonder if there are schools that are actually saying that my students didn't experience a significant loss in learning because we did such and such, I don't know, but I'm particularly intrigued with the overall presentation in the discussion of personal relationships. I teach, you know, teachers going in and getting their license, and we always talk about relationships with students being at the top of the list of the important things that a teacher needs to develop in order to have students doing well. So I really appreciate that. Now, my question is, you know, and you alluded to it several times, and I went back and looked at the different percentages that you mentioned, beginning of the year, end of the year. So my question really is, do you think that if you were to get these kids to come back every year after they graduate, come back every year and do a survey about, do they still use this method of setting a goal for themselves and revisiting their goal in order to notice their own growth? Do you think that, you know, you might do something like that to extend your own learning and find out something?
Um, so 2017 is where we implemented this. To
Yeah.
this day, we have been actually continuously implementing this program. And this is the year that actually I have taken responsibility of mentoring at-risk students, because I wanted to really gauge how to further help those students who are, you know, those at-risk category, and find ways to, other ways to really help those students. So I think absolutely, I think the answer is yes. I think that we have never stopped. You know, I'm living this right now. What we're doing right now, I've created what's called the cadences of weekly cadences, that what we as staff, when we meet on a weekly basis, we actually go through each student, say, okay, how many students we've mentored, and we actually have a percentage to see that what's our goal. We want to make sure we mentor at least 95% of the students on a weekly basis. And this is online, by the way. Obviously, it will be an online mentoring system. So we do that, and we also celebrate some of the areas where the students were able to use some of the language that shows that yes, they are keeping up. And there are some students, like I said, I've taken up on my belt for those who are at risk. And so yes, this is the continuous process that I'm going through with the students.
Okay, finally, my question is, how do you feel about your framework that you changed, where you, you know, have put grit lower than the other two, cognitive and motivation? How do you feel about that framework now at the conclusion? It's on page 3, I think.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I think it just makes a lot of sense. Everything kind of got together as soon as this aha moment came in.
Yes.
But yes, because I think that is exactly where my study is. The entire design of that long-term framework is basically what I'm studying. So I think that is a really good depiction. I feel, and I'm hoping that others may take that as a good understanding process takeaways.
I really think it made, you know, a lot of difference. We went back and forth, Dr. Gibson, on quite a few things, and one of them was, where does this really fit? Is it level? Is it 1, 2, 3 all on an even keel, or is something that we're getting to grit because of these other two things? And you know, it really does feel, you know, good that you made those changes. I enjoyed the building block piece as well on page 18, where you really spelled out and talked about those aspects. So, you know, overall, I think we're ready to let those guests and yourself go to the waiting room, and then we'll have a little chat among ourselves, and then we'll call you back from the waiting room. Does that work for everyone? I think I have to unhost you.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to conclude with at all, Azra?
No, finally, I would again like to say thank you so much for your guidance and support, and your continuous support with that. Thank you.
All right, welcome back. We had an interesting little chat there. We were all excited for Dr. Azra. Congratulations. You can change Miss Azra to Dr. Azra. I'm sure your son is very proud to be part of this moment. And, you know, we had a few little things that we can talk about at some point. Of course, we always have to go over some final edits and things like that. So you'll want to do that. One of the things you'll want to do is change your abstract to past tense. And I think that's true later in the paper, a few places as well. We spoke about that a little bit, but I'm sure everyone wants to congratulate you, and you may have questions, but we have a signature sheet that will be done electronically from Dr. Gibson's office to Dr. Denny and I, so you don't have to worry about that part.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Dr. Naqvi.
Congratulations, Azra. You've made us so proud of you.
Oh my goodness. I'm beyond thankful right now. Overwhelming, but again, this is 4 years of National Louis University. But I think this is I think I can't really say much, but just overwhelming. And I wanted to vow to myself to continue to contribute to the service and be able to do what I can to help the moving forward with the other educators and any other candidates, if to give them support wherever I can, and other leaders as well. So thank you again.
Great.
And thank you also for signing up for the doctoral symposium. So students early in their journey, they get to hear from folks who've been through the process. So that's a big way that you'll be supporting our students, just by sharing your work, with other folks who are trying to reach the same goal that you've reached. So
Now, thank you so much. I did that. I'm glad you brought it up. And I'm assuming the presentation is ideally what I presented right now, right?
Exactly.
Correct? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That works. Yes, definitely.
Very good.
Some time to celebrate, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope we see each other soon again, Azra. You're right down the street. I know, when people say, where I live. I know
you are
where you
more
work.
than welcome to stop by. Definitely. You've come before, so you know where I am. Huh?
Great.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Take care.
We have
Bye.
a virtual hug.
Yay. All right. See you later. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.